Welcome to the Audio Mentors channel, where we transform knowledge into a powerful tool for your personal growth. Today, we begin a new journey toward understanding our mind and how to master it, exploring the book The Chimp Paradox by Steve Peters. In this book, we will learn to manage our minds, recognize impulsive reactions, and make rational decisions. I invite you to subscribe to keep learning and not miss any valuable content. Let's get started. Chapter 1. Introduction. The value of understanding our mind. Steve Peters begins The Chimp Paradox with an invitation to understand how the human mind works so that we can better manage our emotions and behaviors. The author introduces a fundamental concept for personal development. The mind is divided into two main parts, the human brain and the chimp brain. Through this metaphor, Peters offers a simple way to understand the complex dynamics that occur in our minds, facilitating the process of self-awareness and self-control. The divided mind, human brain versus chimp brain. Peters uses the metaphor of the chimp to illustrate how our mind is composed of two thought systems that operate very differently: the human brain, logical, rational, and the chimp brain, emotional, instinctive. This distinction helps us understand why we sometimes make decisions that don't make sense or go against our long-term interests. The human brain is the logical, rational, and analytical part of our mind. It is linked to reflective thinking and is activated when we face situations that require analysis and conscious decision-making. This part of our mind is geared towards solving problems methodically, planning for the future, and seeking rational solutions. The chimp brain, on the other hand, is our emotional and primal side. It is designed to make quick decisions based on instincts and emotions, without the deep reflection of the human brain. The chimp is activated when we feel fear, anger, jealousy, insecurity, or any intense emotion. It reacts impulsively to environmental stimuli and sometimes overwhelms our ability to think rationally, leading to behaviors like getting angry, irrational worries, or impulsive decisions that may be harmful. The constant conflict. One of the key concepts Peters introduces is the constant conflict between the human brain and the chimp brain. These two systems are in constant competition, and often one of them dominates the other, guiding our decisions. While the human brain tries to make rational decisions based on logic, the chimp seeks to satisfy its immediate emotional needs without worrying about long-term consequences. This conflict is reflected in many of our daily experiences. For example, we may know logically that we should save money for the future, but our inner chimp might push us to spend impulsively in the present. Or we may know that we shouldn't argue with a friend or colleague, but the chimp, feeling attacked or threatened, responds with anger or disdain. The author reminds us that the chimp is not bad. It is part of our human nature. The problem arises when we don't recognize its presence and let it govern our decisions uncontrollably. By learning to identify when we are being controlled by the chimp, we can start making more balanced and rational decisions. Recognizing the chimp in our lives. One of the first steps that Peters suggests is recognizing when the chimp is in control. As human beings, we are often unaware of when we are being guided by our emotions rather than by logic. This is a process of self-awareness that requires practice and reflection. Only when we understand how these two thinking systems work can we better manage our emotions and make conscious and wise choices. Peters recommends that we start by observing intense emotional reactions, such as fear, anger, or frustration, that arise without logical explanation. These are clear moments of chimp intervention, and by recognizing them, we can choose to take a breath, reflect, and give the human brain a chance to make the more rational decision. The importance of self-control. Self-control is the ability to manage our emotions, thoughts, and behaviors to achieve our goals. It is essential in any personal change process, and Peters emphasizes that, to develop effective control over the chimp, we must practice mindfulness. This allows us to be present in the moment, recognize the emotions that arise, and choose how we react, rather than acting impulsively. The author explains that the goal is not to suppress the chimp's emotions but to channel them constructively. For example, instead of letting the chimp lose control due to an outburst of anger, we can learn to take a step back, breathe deeply, and reflect before responding. In this way, the chimp doesn't have the final say, and we can make decisions that are more aligned with our values and goals. Training the Chimp. Peters emphasizes that training the chimp doesn't mean eliminating or ignoring it but understanding it and learning to live with it. This training involves teaching the chimp to react more appropriately to certain situations. By doing so, the chimp will not be an enemy but rather a part of our mind that we can control and use effectively. The chimp training process involves training our mind to become an ally rather than an obstacle. This is achieved by establishing routines, positive thoughts, and conscious responses to the emotional situations that arise. Chapter conclusion. This first chapter sets the framework for understanding how our mind works and how we can manage the internal conflict between the emotional chimp and the rational human brain. Recognizing this duality within us is the first step towards achieving a more balanced and fulfilling life. Peters offers practical tools for identifying when we are being controlled by the chimp and how to take control through awareness and mental training. As we progress through the book, we will learn to better manage our emotions and use the chimp in a more productive way. This chapter invites us to start a deep process of self-awareness to discover how our emotional reactions work and how we can begin to make wiser and more conscious decisions in our daily lives. Chapter 2. Understanding the functioning of our mind. The chimp brain. Steve Peters continues to develop the concept of the chimp brain and how it influences our emotions and decisions. In this chapter, he offers a detailed explanation of how this internal chimp is activated in our mind, its characteristics, and how its behavior impacts our daily lives. Peters dives into the interaction between the human brain and the chimp brain, helping us better understand how these two forces clash and how we can manage them. The chimp brain and its emotional nature. The chimp brain represents our emotional and primal side, which responds to situations without the intervention of logic or reflective analysis. Just like chimpanzees in nature, this part of our brain is designed to make quick, emotional decisions based on instincts and immediate needs, without thinking about the long-term consequences. In stressful or dangerous situations, the chimp prioritizes survival and instant gratification. This chimp is not influenced by logical thought but acts impulsively, driven by primary desires such as safety, pleasure, or reacting to perceived threats. It is important to understand that this part of our mind is not necessarily negative, but is part of our biology. However, its lack of control can lead us to make unwise decisions, especially when under pressure or when emotions overflow. The chimp versus the human brain. One of the most powerful ideas Peters introduces is the constant battle between the human brain and the chimp brain. The human brain represents our reason, our capacity for reflection, and our tendency to make logical decisions based on facts and principles. While the chimp is impulsive, emotional, and reacts without filters, the human brain strives to plan and think long-term. This internal conflict explains why we sometimes make decisions that are inconsistent with our best interests. For example, we may know that we will eat poorly if we don't exercise, but the chimp leads us to opt for the immediate gratification of fast food and rest. This is a conflict that occurs all the time in our minds, and the real challenge is how to manage these two forces in balance to make healthier and more rational decisions. The impact of the chimp's emotions. The chimp is directly related to our most intense emotions, such as fear, anger, envy, and frustration. These emotions, while natural and useful in moments of danger, can be disproportionate in everyday situations. The chimp cannot distinguish between a real threat and a perceived threat, which leads to extreme emotional reactions when we feel attacked, disrespected, or envious. The author mentions that the chimp is particularly active when we feel insulted or threatened by others. Instead of staying calm and evaluating the situation rationally, the chimp responds aggressively or defensively, which can harm us in the long run. These behaviors can interfere with our ability to resolve conflicts, communicate effectively, or even make rational decisions at work and in relationships. The struggle for immediate gratification. One of the most characteristic traits of the chimp is its need for immediate gratification. This is what leads us to act impulsively, sometimes without considering the consequences. Peters explains that the chimp seeks pleasure and avoids pain, and this translates into decisions that look for quick results without thinking about the long-term impact. This mindset is behind many destructive behaviors, such as smoking, overeating, procrastination, or avoiding responsibility. The chimp feels very comfortable with instant gratification, but this behavior can be very harmful if not managed properly. The key to managing the chimp, according to Peters, is learning to delay gratification and replace impulses with more rational choices. The human brain has the ability to think long-term, plan for the future, and make decisions based on greater goals. But this only happens if we learn to calm the chimp and take control of our emotions. Recognizing the chimp's reactions. The first step in managing the chimp is recognizing when it's taking control. Often, we are unaware of when the chimp is reacting emotionally, and as a result, we lose control of the situation. Peters suggests that we must learn to detect the signs that the chimp is in charge. When we feel fear, anger, anxiety, or a desire for immediate gratification, it's likely that we are under the influence of the chimp. Once we become aware of these reactions, we can begin to take steps to calm them and return control to our human brain. This may involve pausing before making an important decision, taking deep breaths to reduce emotional intensity, or reframing our perspective on what is happening. By taking this control, we are able to think clearly and act with more rationality and emotional balance. The chimp and decision-making. The impact of the chimp is particularly visible in decision-making. When facing an important decision, it's common for the chimp to feel attacked or challenged by any uncertainty. This leads it to seek a quick solution, which may not be the best option in the long run. Peters encourages us to use the rationality of the human brain to calmly evaluate decisions, weighing the consequences and benefits before acting. Peters offers a practical approach for making more effective decisions. Identify the chimp's desires, put them into perspective, and then take a step back to allow the human brain to analyze the situation. This approach doesn't mean ignoring emotions, but rather learning to channel them in a way that doesn't dominate our decisions. The chimp in work and social relationships. The chimp also has a significant impact on our social interactions. The emotions and reactions that arise during interpersonal interactions are often driven by the chimp. The author highlights how, in work situations, when we face pressure, criticism, or competition, the chimp can lead us to overreact, distorting the interaction. The same happens in personal relationships, where the chimp can cause unnecessary conflicts due to its sensitivity to insults or doubts. Peters emphasizes the importance of being aware of these emotional reactions to create more authentic and balanced relationships. By understanding the chimp's behavior, we can improve our interactions and foster an environment of cooperation and mutual appreciation, both in the workplace and in personal life. Chapter conclusion. This chapter is crucial for understanding how the chimp brain affects our emotions, decisions, and behaviors. Peters shows us that the chimp is not an enemy, but a natural part of our mind that we can learn to manage and train. By doing so, we can make more rational decisions, control our emotions, and improve our interpersonal relationships, creating a more balanced and harmonious life. In summary, the key to managing our mind is recognizing the influence of the chimp, reacting consciously, and training our minds to be more rational rather than letting the chimp guide our emotional decisions. If you're ready to continue diving into how to manage your internal chimp and make more balanced decisions, we can move on to the next chapter. Chapter 3. The Chimp and the Management of Our Emotions. In this chapter, Steve Peters dives deeper into how the chimp brain affects our emotions and how we can learn to manage them effectively. According to Peters, the key to managing our emotions is recognizing when the chimp is in control and applying strategies that allow us to channel its emotional impulses into more rational and constructive responses. This chapter is essential for understanding how we can begin to reduce the negative impact of the chimp on our daily life, from social interactions to personal and professional decisions. Emotions and the chimp. Emotions are an intrinsic part of the human experience, and the chimp is deeply linked to our most intense emotions. According to Peters, the chimp is primarily responsible for generating our immediate emotional reactions. This emotional system acts as an automatic response to situations perceived as threats or rewards. For example, when we experience fear, anger, anxiety, or envy, it is the chimp's impulses that push us to act without thinking about the long-term consequences. The chimp does not discriminate between a real threat and a mistaken perception of danger. Its goal is to protect us, but it often acts disproportionately. For example, in response to a criticism or a small disagreement, the chimp may generate an excessive emotional reaction, such as anger or resentment, which can damage our relationships and peace of mind. Automatic emotional reactions. One of the keys to understanding emotional management is recognizing that the chimp's emotional reactions are automatic. This system is not designed to think or analyze deeply, it simply reacts. When someone insults us or when we feel rejected, the chimp immediately reacts with aggression or fear. However, these automatic responses are not always the most appropriate. Although the chimp acts to protect us, the author emphasizes that these emotions can be unbalanced and do not always lead to effective conflict resolution. The ability to stop and reflect before responding emotionally is what truly allows us to manage our emotions and make rational decisions. The role of awareness in emotional management. Peters emphasizes that the first step in managing emotions is developing awareness. It is crucial that we realize when the chimp is in charge. Emotional awareness is the process of recognizing our emotions as they arise, rather than allowing ourselves to be swept away by them. By being aware of our emotional responses, we can begin to take control over them, choosing how to respond rather than reacting impulsively. One of the most effective ways to detect the chimp is by paying attention to the physical signals our body sends us. Often, the chimp sends us signals of tension or nervousness before our rational mind has time to process them. Rapid breathing, a racing heart, or a sense of discomfort are signs that the chimp is taking control. Recognizing these physical symptoms is a crucial first step in calming the chimp and allowing our rational mind to intervene. Techniques for calming the chimp. Peters proposes several strategies for managing emotions and calming the chimp in moments of stress or conflict. These techniques are based on reducing emotional intensity to allow the human brain to take control and act with logic and rationality. Pause and deep breathing. One of the simplest and most effective techniques is to pause for a few seconds when we feel our emotions taking control. Deep breathing and focusing on our breath helps reduce the chimp's activation and restore balance. This pause gives us the space to think before reacting. Reframing the situation. Sometimes, the chimp responds exaggeratedly due to our perception of a situation. Changing our perspective on a problem can alleviate emotional intensity. For example, if someone criticizes us, we can view the criticism as an opportunity to improve, rather than as a threat to our self-esteem. Positive distraction. In situations where emotions are overwhelming, another useful strategy is to distract ourselves with something positive. This could be anything that calms us or brings us pleasure. Listening to music, walking, reading something inspiring, or engaging in an activity we enjoy. The goal is to shift the chimp's focus to something positive. Accepting emotions without judgment. The author also highlights the importance of accepting our emotions without judging them. It's not about denying what we feel, but recognizing that our emotions are a natural response and that we don't need to identify with them. By allowing ourselves to feel without getting stuck in the emotional cycle, we can free ourselves from the intensity of the emotional reaction. The chimp in stress and anxiety. The chimp plays a key role in generating stress and anxiety. When we face a challenging situation, the chimp may feel it's in danger, which triggers a fear or insecurity response. However, these responses are often excessive or unnecessary. For example, the fear of failure may be amplified by the chimp, which fears the emotional repercussions of not meeting expectations. Peters points out that stress and anxiety can be managed more effectively when we recognize the source of the emotion and understand that many of our worries are created by the chimp. The way to reduce stress, therefore, is through emotional management and rationalization. By taking control of our emotions and not allowing the chimp to control our reactions, we can significantly reduce the impact of stress in our daily lives. The importance of self-compassion. One of the keys to managing the chimp is practicing self-compassion. The author notes that the chimp often pushes us to be critical or harsh with ourselves when we make mistakes or fail to meet our goals. However, instead of giving in to self-demand or destructive self-criticism, we can learn to be kinder to ourselves. Self-compassion allows us to recognize our mistakes without identifying with them and move forward with appreciation and respect for ourselves. Chapter conclusion. This chapter emphasizes that emotional management is essential for living a balanced and healthy life. The chimp has a significant impact on our emotions and reactions, but understanding how it works and learning to control it allows us to make more rational decisions and live with greater serenity. With the right tools and strategies, we can master the emotions of the chimp and cultivate a calmer, more balanced mind. Chapter 4. The Battle Between the Chimp and the Human Brain. In this chapter, Steve Peters delves into the ongoing conflict between the human brain and the chimp brain. This internal battle is key to understanding human behavior, as these two parts of the mind have completely different goals and mechanisms of operation. Throughout this chapter, we will learn to recognize when each part of our mind is in charge and how we can work to balance them and control our emotional responses more effectively. The human brain and its rational approach. The human brain, or more precisely, the rational part of the brain, is oriented toward logic, analytical thinking, and long-term planning. This part of our mind is what enables us to make rational decisions, considering all possible options and evaluating their consequences for the future. It is the part that puts into practice our most developed cognitive skills, such as problem-solving, critical analysis, and strategic thinking. The human brain's rational approach. The human brain acts in a reflective and controlled manner, allowing us to make decisions that are not only emotionally satisfying in the moment but also aligned with our long-term goals. This part of the mind is closely tied to self-discipline, planning, and strategic execution. The chimp brain and its emotional reactions. On the other hand, the chimp brain is driven by emotions and reacts instinctively to external stimuli. When the chimp takes over, it makes us react immediately without considering the consequences of our actions. In situations of stress, fear, or anger, the chimp can take control, triggering intense emotional responses such as rage, fear, or anxiety. The main difference between these two parts of the mind is that the chimp doesn't care about the future. It focuses on immediate gratification. While the human brain can delay gratification and make long-term plans, the chimp seeks immediate rewards without worrying about the future consequences. This creates a constant conflict, as the human brain wants to make rational, well-thought-out decisions, while the chimp acts impulsively, prioritizing the here and now. The internal struggle and its consequences. The conflict between the human brain and the chimp brain generates many of the doubts, insecurities, and internal struggles we experience in daily life. Often, people find themselves trapped in a battle between what they feel, chimp, and what they know they should do, human brain. This back and forth can lead to irrational decisions, emotional stress, and a sense of lack of control. For example, when someone insults or challenges us, the chimp may lead us to react emotionally and respond with aggression or disdain, while the human brain would encourage us to remain calm and resolve the conflict more constructively. In this case, if the chimp takes control, the situation could escalate quickly, while if the human brain leads, we might find a calmer, more rational solution. Peters explains that many times, when we feel like we are losing control or acting irrationally, it's because the chimp has taken control and blocked the human brain's ability to make logical, thoughtful decisions. This cycle can be exhausting and create emotional confusion, but by learning to identify when we're being dominated by the chimp, we can regain control. Balancing the chimp and the human brain. One of the most valuable lessons of this chapter is the importance of finding balance between the two parts of our mind. It's not about suppressing the chimp but understanding its role and managing it properly. While the chimp can be useful in emergency or danger situations, its impulsive responses are often counterproductive in everyday life. Peters suggests that we must learn to channel the emotional energy of the chimp positively, allowing our emotions not to dominate us but to work in harmony with our rational decisions. This involves developing skills such as self-control, conscious decision-making, and reflective thinking. By doing so, we can maintain internal balance and make decisions more aligned with our long-term goals and values. Techniques to balance the human brain and the chimp. To effectively manage the internal conflict between the chimp and the human brain, Peters offers several practical strategies we can apply in our daily lives. Recognize when the chimp is in charge. Awareness is the first step. By identifying moments when the chimp is in control, we can act more reflectively. For example, if we feel overwhelmed by anger or anxiety, it's likely that the chimp is in charge. Recognizing this, we can pause to calm our emotions. Practice deep breathing. Conscious breathing is a powerful tool to reduce the chimp's emotional activation. Breathing deeply and in a controlled manner can activate the parasympathetic nervous system, helping to calm impulsive responses and restore rational control. Challenge the chimp's emotions. When the chimp reacts emotionally to a situation, the human brain must interrupt that emotional reaction and question it. Asking ourselves questions like, is this response proportional to the stimulus? Or, how could I handle this situation more rationally? Helps us reframe the situation. Establish a self-care routine. Self-care and the practice of self-compassion are essential for maintaining balance. If we don't tend to our emotional needs in a healthy way, the chimp will more easily take control. Practicing self-care through proper rest, healthy eating, exercise, and enjoyable activities helps maintain our mental balance. The impact of the chimp on work and social life. The conflict between the chimp and the human brain also significantly impacts our social interactions and professional life. The chimp can provoke impulsive reactions such as envy, excessive competition, or lack of empathy in workplace situations. Similarly, in personal relationships, the chimp can create misunderstandings or unnecessary conflicts due to its tendency to take things personally. To manage these dynamics, it's crucial to take time to reflect before responding in social and professional interactions. Peters suggests practicing active listening, being empathetic, and staying calm to reduce the impact of the chimp's overwhelming emotions. Chapter conclusion. In this chapter, we learned about the constant battle between the human brain and the chimp brain, and how this internal conflict can affect our decisions, emotions, and relationships. The key to achieving mental balance lies in recognizing the influence of the chimp and using the right strategies to channel its impulses into more rational responses. By strengthening our self-control, we can live in a more balanced and serene way, making decisions that are better aligned with our long-term goals. Chapter 5. The Chimp Brain in the Social Environment. In this chapter, Steve Peters delves into how the chimp brain influences our social interactions. The chimp not only affects our personal decision-making but also plays a key role in how we relate to others. Social interactions, from the most mundane to the most complex, are deeply marked by the emotions and impulses generated by the internal chimp, often leading to unnecessary conflicts and misunderstandings. The nature of the chimp in relationships. The author explains that the chimp is emotionally sensitive, especially when it comes to personal relationships. Just like a chimp in the wild, our emotional part is programmed to protect and defend itself from any perceived threat, including threats to our self-esteem, personal opinions, or feelings of rejection. When faced with criticism or when we feel attacked in a conversation, the chimp tends to react defensively. This means that in a discussion or conflict with another person, the chimp can lead us to make impulsive or aggressive decisions, such as shouting, interrupting, or discrediting the other person, even when it's unnecessary. The chimp's intense emotions often cloud our judgment and prevent us from listening effectively or understanding the other person's point of view. The chimp and the need for belonging. One of the chimp's strongest drivers is the need to belong to the social group, which is fundamental for humans from an evolutionary perspective. The chimp constantly seeks approval from others and feels deep anxiety at the prospect of being rejected or excluded. This need for social acceptance can make the chimp overly sensitive to any criticism or conflict in relationships. For example, in the workplace or friendships, the chimp may interpret any form of criticism or negative comment as a personal attack and react disproportionately, leading to misunderstandings or ruptures in the relationship. The chimp is constantly on alert to protect its social status, which can result in fear of rejection or a desire to please others at the expense of our authenticity. The chimp and competition. Another key aspect Peters addresses in this chapter is the competition between individuals. The chimp has an inherent need to compete for recognition and respect within the group. This manifests in rivalry situations, whether at work, in personal relationships, or even in everyday interactions. If not properly managed, this competition can trigger destructive behaviors such as jealousy, resentment, or even aggression. When the chimp feels it's not receiving proper recognition, it may react with feelings of inferiority or frustration, distorting our perception of interactions and creating unnecessary conflicts. Peters explains that this feeling of competition is not always based on reality. Rather, it's often a projection of our internal insecurities, fueled by the chimp. The chimp and the need for control. In social interactions, the chimp also seeks to control the situation to avoid feeling vulnerable. The desire to control others or circumstances is a manifestation of the chimp's emotional insecurity, which cannot tolerate uncertainty or loss of power. This need for control can manifest in dominant or manipulative behaviors, where the chimp tries to impose its will on others to feel secure. The chimp often seeks to confirm its position within a group, whether familial, work-related, or social, by ensuring its ideas are accepted and its status is recognized. This impulse can affect relationships by creating power dynamics and conflicts between people, especially when two chimps try to dominate the conversation or situation. How to manage the chimp in relationships. Peters offers several strategies to manage the chimp's emotional reactions in social interactions. Recognize the chimp's control. The first step is to be aware of when the chimp is taking control in a social situation. Emotional awareness is key to stopping and reflecting before reacting impulsively. Peters advises taking a pause before responding, especially in situations where the chimp may be demanding a strong emotional response. Breathe deeply and calm down. Deep breathing is one of the best techniques for controlling the chimp. By taking a few moments to breathe deeply, we can activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps calm intense emotions and restore emotional balance. Reframe the conflict. Peters recommends that, instead of entering into a direct conflict, we should reframe the situation in a way that favors a peaceful resolution. If we feel that the chimp is triggering a defensive or aggressive response, we can try to see the situation from another perspective and respond with more empathy. Practice empathy. Empathy is a powerful tool for managing the chimp in relationships. When we understand the emotions of others and recognize that everyone has a chimp, we can reduce judgment and competition. Instead of viewing others as rivals, we can see them as companions with the same desires and fears as ourselves. Set healthy boundaries. It is important, while understanding and accepting the chimp within us and others, to also establish healthy boundaries. It is not about allowing the chimp to control relationships, but about managing its emotions in a way that interactions remain respectful and productive. The importance of balanced relationships. One of the main lessons of this chapter is that our social relationships are a direct extension of our ability to manage the internal chimp. If the chimp is out of control, it can damage our relationships by creating emotional distance, unnecessary conflicts, and a lack of effective communication. However, when we are aware of its presence and learn to balance it with the human brain, we can build healthier relationships based on mutual respect, empathy, and understanding. Chapter conclusion. The chimp brain has a significant impact on our social relationships. Understanding how the chimp's intense emotions affect our interactions is crucial for managing conflicts, reducing stress, and fostering harmony in our relationships. By recognizing the chimp's control and applying strategies to calm it, we can improve our ability to relate to others in a more empathetic and rational way. This chapter teaches us that, although the chimp profoundly influences our social emotions with self-awareness and effective practices, we can balance our minds and create more authentic and satisfying relationships. Chapter 6. The importance of self-understanding in managing the chimp brain. In this chapter, Steve Peters addresses one of the most fundamental topics in managing the chimp brain: self-understanding. Understanding our own emotions, thoughts, and reactions is the first step in taking control over the chimp and preventing our impulsive responses from governing our lives. By developing a deep awareness of our mind and emotional reactions, we can begin to understand why we act the way we do and how to improve our response to emotional challenges. Self-understanding as the foundation for emotional management. Peters emphasizes that self-understanding is crucial for effectively managing our emotions and thoughts. Understanding how our emotional brain works and recognizing how the chimp influences our reactions is the first step in taking control of our responses. Self-understanding allows us to identify when the chimp is in control and when we are being guided by our emotions. One of the reasons why self-understanding is so powerful is that it allows us to separate our automatic reactions from rational thought. When we understand how the chimp works and the emotions that drive it, we can take emotional distance and reflect before acting, rather than being carried away by an impulsive response. The process of self-understanding. The process of self-understanding begins with observing our emotions and recognizing our behavioral patterns. Peters suggests that we should observe ourselves without judgment and be aware of the emotions that arise in different situations. Asking ourselves questions like, "What am I feeling right now?" and "Why am I reacting this way?" helps us identify whether our emotions are being triggered by the chimp or by a more logical and balanced response. This practice of non-judgmental observation is a way to develop emotional awareness. By being more conscious of our emotions and their origins, we can begin to modify the chimp's automatic responses. For example, if we feel angry in a conversation, we may realize that this anger is impulsive and not necessarily a rational response to the situation. This recognition allows us to choose a calmer, more controlled response. Self-knowledge and identifying emotional triggers. A key part of self-understanding is identifying our emotional triggers. These are the factors or situations that provoke an emotional response in us. They can be comments, actions by others, or even our own thoughts that activate our emotional reaction, especially when the chimp is involved. For example, if a personal critique triggers anger or feelings of rejection, it's important to identify what really triggered that reaction. It could be that our chimp perceives the critique as a threat to our self-esteem or security, which triggers an intense emotional response. Once we identify our emotional triggers, we can start working on them. This may include reframing the situation, changing our perspective, or even practicing tolerance to reduce the impact of those triggers on our emotional life. The importance of emotions in self-understanding. Peters emphasizes that emotions are neither good nor bad. They are simply responses to what happens around us. What matters is how we manage them and how we interpret those emotions. Instead of fighting against our emotions or suppressing them, we must learn to accept them as a natural part of our human experience. The key is not to fully identify with the emotions that arise from the chimp brain, but to recognize them as something we can manage. For example, if we experience fear or anxiety, instead of seeing these emotions as negative, we can understand that they are natural and may be helpful in certain situations. Fear, for instance, is a response from the chimp to potential threats, but it is not always appropriate if the situation does not justify it. By accepting that emotions are natural but not always useful, we can learn to modulate our responses to align with our goals and values. The impact of self-understanding on personal relationships. Self-understanding also plays a key role in our personal relationships. When we understand our own emotions, we can improve how we communicate with others. If we don't understand why we react a certain way, it is easy to misinterpret situations or react excessively or defensively. For example, if we are in a discussion with a loved one and feel our chimp is taking control, which might lead us to shout or be dismissive, self-understanding allows us to recognize that emotion and pause before responding. This creates space for the human brain to intervene and allow for more constructive communication. How self-understanding improves decision-making. One of the main benefits of self-understanding is that it improves our decision-making. When we understand how our emotions and thoughts interact, we can make more rational decisions that are aligned with our long-term goals. Instead of acting impulsively under the influence of the chimp, we can pause, reflect, and make more conscious choices. Peters notes that self-understanding also enables us to identify behavior patterns that may not be useful. For example, if we tend to procrastinate or avoid certain tasks due to anxiety, self-understanding helps us recognize this pattern and apply strategies to overcome it. Developing self-understanding through practice. Self-understanding is not something that is achieved immediately, it is a process that requires constant practice. Peters suggests several methods to develop this skill. Daily reflection. Taking a few minutes at the end of the day to reflect on our emotions and behaviors helps us recognize patterns and learn from our reactions. This reflective space allows us to take emotional distance and better understand our responses. Journaling. writing about our emotional experiences helps organize our thoughts and process emotions. This exercise can be an effective way to release what we feel and free ourselves from unnecessary emotional burdens. Mindfulness. Practicing mindfulness helps us stay present in the moment and recognize our emotions as they arise. By not reacting immediately to our emotions, we can make more balanced and rational decisions. Chapter conclusion. This chapter teaches us that self-understanding is a fundamental skill for managing our emotions and improving our lives. By learning to recognize how the chimp influences our reactions and behaviors, we can begin to take control of our emotional responses and act more rationally and constructively. Self-understanding not only improves our relationship with ourselves, but also enhances our interpersonal relationships and our ability to make decisions aligned with our values. Chapter 7. Emotional reactions and how to control them. In this chapter, Steve Peters addresses an essential topic for our emotional and personal life: how to control our emotional reactions. The chimp, with its impulsive and reactive nature, tends to generate intense emotional responses to stress, anxiety, or frustration. These reactions, though natural, are often not the most appropriate for making rational decisions or resolving conflicts. The author offers practical tools to recognize and manage these emotional reactions more effectively. The chimp's automatic emotional reactions. The chapter begins with an explanation of how the inner chimp generates automatic emotional reactions to certain stimuli, without the intervention of reason or reflective analysis. The chimp, being associated with our emotional brain, reacts quickly to what it perceives as threats, uncomfortable situations, or even moments of uncertainty. Instead of deeply thinking about the situation, the chimp focuses on an immediate response to protect itself or achieve instant gratification. For example, when we face criticism or a conflict situation, the chimp may generate emotional responses like anger, fear, or humiliation. These emotions are not always proportional to the situation and often lead us to disproportionate reactions. However, recognizing that these reactions are automatic and not always useful is the first step toward controlling them. The influence of the chimp on our reactions. The chimp, as a primitive part of our mind, does not consider the long-term consequences of its reactions. Its responses are instinctive and emotional, with the primary goal of protecting us, not necessarily solving problems or maintaining harmonious relationships. The author explains that when the chimp is in control, our responses can be impulsive, such as reacting with aggression, avoiding conflict, or emotionally withdrawing. One of the main difficulties we face when dealing with the emotional reactions of the chimp is that these responses can affect our ability to make rational decisions. Intense emotions, while useful in emergency situations, often cloud our judgment and prevent us from seeing a more balanced solution. The author emphasizes that emotional control is essential for making decisions that align with our long-term goals. How to stop automatic emotional reactions. Peters offers several strategies to stop or modify the chimp's impulsive emotional reactions and replace them with more rational and constructive responses. Conscious pause. The first crucial step is to stop before reacting. When we feel our emotions taking control, Peters suggests pausing for a moment, taking a deep breath to calm the body and mind. This pause gives us the opportunity to analyze the situation before making an impulsive decision. By doing so, we allow the human brain to interrupt the chimp's automatic reaction. Reframing the situation. The author suggests reframing the event that triggers the emotion to see it from a different perspective. If someone criticizes us, for example, we can reframe that criticism as an opportunity for improvement rather than a personal threat. This shift in focus helps reduce emotional intensity and allows us to respond more logically. Questioning the emotional response. Another technique Peters suggests is questioning whether our emotional response is proportional to the stimulus. Are we overreacting? What is the purpose of this emotion? By putting our emotions into perspective, we can reduce their power and make more balanced decisions. The author recommends practicing this reflection in real time, especially in high-tension situations. Using breathing and mindfulness. Peters emphasizes the power of deep breathing and mindfulness to calm the chimp. When emotions intensify, the chimp urges us to act without thinking. Deep breathing and mindfulness allow us to recognize emotions without being overwhelmed by them, helping us restore balance and make more rational decisions. The importance of self-reflection. Peters highlights that self-reflection is an essential tool for understanding our emotional reactions. Taking time each day to reflect on our emotions, what triggered them, and how we handled them helps us learn from each experience and improve our emotional responses. This process of self-reflection fosters constant growth, allowing us to recognize emotional patterns that we may be repeating and consciously change them. A useful technique for self-reflection is journaling about our emotions. This exercise not only allows us to process our emotions, but also gives us an external perspective on how we are reacting to different situations. By regularly doing this exercise, we can identify emotional patterns and work on ways to improve our responses to similar situations in the future. The impact of emotions on health and well-being. Peters also touches on how uncontrolled emotions can negatively impact our physical and mental health. When the chimp takes over our reactions, especially in prolonged stress situations, the body experiences constant stress, which can lead to health problems such as high blood pressure, chronic anxiety, insomnia, and other related disorders. Additionally, intense emotions can affect our self-esteem and create a cycle of negative thinking. Therefore, emotional management is not only essential for making healthy decisions but also for preserving our mental and physical health. Learning to manage our emotions with empathy and self-compassion not only improves our quality of life but also strengthens our long-term well-being. The chimp and teamwork. The chimp's emotions also affect our ability to work in teams and collaborate with others. When the chimp is activated, we may experience frustration, jealousy, or fear of competition, which can hinder effective collaboration. Peters highlights that by understanding how the chimp influences our social interactions, we can learn to work better in teams and manage emotional conflicts that arise more constructively. Teamwork requires us to manage our emotions in order to listen, share ideas, and respect the opinions of others. Peters suggests that we must practice empathy and accept emotional diversity within groups, recognizing that each member also has an inner chimp that may influence their behavior. Chapter conclusion. In this chapter, we have learned how the automatic emotions generated by the chimp can affect our decisions and how we can control them to make more rational and balanced choices. The key to managing our emotional reactions is to recognize when the chimp is in control, take a conscious pause, and apply practical strategies such as deep breathing, self-reflection, and questioning our emotional responses. Peters also reminds us that while emotions are natural and necessary, taking control of them allows us to live a more balanced and healthy life. By learning to channel emotions productively, we can improve our interpersonal relationships, reduce stress, and make more rational decisions. Chapter 8. The key to making rational decisions versus impulsivity. In this chapter, Steve Peters focuses on how to make rational decisions amid the impulsivity generated by the chimpanzee brain. While the chimp seeks immediate satisfaction and emotional protection, the human brain acts more rationally and is oriented toward long-term goals. The goal of this chapter is to help readers recognize and manage the impulsive behavior of the chimp to make decisions that align with our values and objectives. The impulsivity of the chimp. Peters explains how the chimp is designed to make quick, emotional decisions in times of crisis or threats. These impulsive reactions, while useful in survival situations, are not always appropriate when it comes to everyday decisions. The chimp, driven by fear, the desire for instant gratification, or the need to avoid pain, can lead us to make hasty decisions that do not serve our long-term goals. A classic example of impulsivity is when, feeling stressed or overwhelmed, the chimp drives us to procrastinate, avoid responsibilities, or seek quick solutions that provide temporary relief but don't solve the underlying problem. Peters highlights that this type of impulsive behavior can have negative consequences, such as frustration, guilt, and a lack of progress toward our long-term goals. The human brain and rational decision-making. The human brain, on the other hand, is designed to think long-term. Its primary goal is to analyze the consequences of our actions, consider alternatives, and make decisions that bring us closer to our goals. However, in the moment of decision-making, the chimp often intervenes, pushing us to act quickly and be driven by emotions. Peters argues that the key to making rational decisions lies in interrupting the chimp's emotional impulse and allowing the human brain to take control. To do so, we need to learn to recognize when our decisions are being driven by impulsivity and when it's time to pause, reflect, and consider the best available options. The role of the pause in decision-making. One of the key points in the chapter is the importance of pausing before making significant decisions, especially when we are experiencing intense emotions. Peters suggests that taking a few seconds or minutes to stop, breathe, and reflect on the situation gives us the time necessary to calm the chimp and allow the human brain to focus on logic and reflective analysis. The author explains that this moment of pause not only helps reduce impulsivity but also allows us to better assess the consequences of our decisions. During this pause, we can ask questions such as, is this really what I want? Is this decision aligned with my values and long-term goals? What impact will this decision have on my future well-being? By taking time to reflect, we can make wiser decisions that are more aligned with our true intentions. The importance of self-compassion in decision-making. Another important theme that Peters addresses is the relationship between self-compassion and rational decision-making. When the chimp feels disapproved of, guilty, or frustrated, it may make impulsive decisions to avoid immediate emotional pain. However, these decisions often do not address the underlying cause of the discomfort and can lead to negative long-term consequences. Peters suggests that self-compassion is a key tool for handling moments of doubt or frustration. When we feel overwhelmed, it is important to be kind to ourselves and give ourselves space to make decisions from a place of clarity, rather than from the desire to avoid immediate pain. Self-compassion allows us to free ourselves from anxiety and self-criticism, which often push us to make impulsive decisions. The rational decision-making process. Peters offers a structured process for making rational decisions in the face of the chimp's impulsivity. This process consists of several steps that help us structure our response and make more balanced decisions. Recognize the emotion. The first step is to be aware of the emotions we are experiencing. If we are feeling anger, fear, or a desire for instant gratification, we need to recognize that the chimp is influencing our decision. Identifying these emotions allows us to stop the impulsive reaction and begin assessing the situation with more clarity. Take a pause. As mentioned before, it is crucial to pause before making any important decision. This pause gives us time to calm the chimp and allow the human brain to evaluate the consequences of our actions. Analyze the options. During the pause, we can begin to consider all available alternatives. Peters recommends thinking about the short and long-term consequences of each option and how each one aligns with our values and goals. Decide from a place of reason. Once we've analyzed the options, we should make our decision from a rational standpoint. This means considering the facts, future benefits, and our long-term goals. By doing this, we reduce the likelihood of making impulsive decisions that could have negative consequences. Accept the decision. Finally, once we've made a decision based on reason, it's important to accept and commit to it. The chimp may try to make us doubt or seek an easy way out, but by committing to our decision, we avoid falling into regret or the desire to change direction. The impact of rational decision-making on our lives. The author concludes this chapter by highlighting how making rational and balanced decisions not only helps us avoid impulsive mistakes but also improves our self-confidence. By learning to manage the chimp's impulsivity, we can strengthen our self-esteem and feel more secure in our ability to make important decisions. Moreover, making rational decisions also improves our relationships and our ability to work in teams. When we make decisions based on logic and analysis, we can interact more calmly and empathetically, which fosters conflict resolution and collaboration in high-pressure situations. Chapter 9. The Influence of the Chimp on Stress and Anxiety. In this chapter, Steve Peters addresses how the chimp brain is one of the main contributors to the onset and maintenance of stress and anxiety. These two conditions are often the result of the interaction between the emotional chimp and the more logical part of our mind, and Peters offers tools to manage and control the stress and anxiety generated by the chimp. The chimp and stress responses. The chimp, as the instinctual part of our mind, is highly sensitive to perceived threats. In stressful situations, the chimp activates its fight or flight response. an automatic reaction designed to protect us from immediate danger. However, in the modern world, this response is triggered far more frequently than necessary. Peters explains that the chimp overreacts to everyday situations that pose no real threat, but that the emotional brain interprets as dangers. For example, a criticism at work or a disagreement in a relationship may be perceived by the chimp as a threat to our emotional security or status, triggering the fight or flight response. While this reaction is useful in a survival context, it often creates unnecessary stress when we are not actually in danger. When the chimp is in control, emotions like anger or fear can rise quickly, generating stress that impacts our physical and mental health. Anxiety and the chimp. Anxiety is another product of the chimp's emotional reactions. When we anticipate a danger or threat, the chimp activates a state of alertness that can trigger constant worries about the future. Unlike stress, which is typically associated with immediate situations, anxiety has a more anticipatory dimension, where the chimp makes us worry about future events that have not yet happened. Peters explains that, just like with stress, the chimp amplifies our perception of danger and leads us to excessively worry about hypothetical situations. This can create a cycle of negative thoughts, where we feel insecure or incapable of handling the future. Anxiety becomes a barrier to enjoying the present, as the chimp is constantly preoccupied with what might go wrong in the future. The relationship between the chimp, control, and lack of control. One of the main factors that fuels stress and anxiety is the sense of lack of control. The chimp, being so focused on the present and on perceived threats, tends to feel out of control in situations it cannot handle instantly. This feeling of being unable to control what happens around us increases stress and anxiety, as the chimp feels vulnerable and fearful. The human brain, on the other hand, has the ability to think long-term and plan ahead, which can help us feel more in control of our circumstances. However, the chimp often interrupts this rational planning ability, generating stress when we feel incapable of controlling the future. Strategies to manage stress and anxiety. Peters offers several strategies to manage stress and anxiety, helping us calm the chimp and make more rational decisions in moments of tension. Identify the sources of stress. The first step in managing stress is to identify what is causing it. By doing so, we can distinguish between legitimate concerns and exaggerated perceptions of the chimp. Asking ourselves, is there really a threat here? Or is this situation as bad as my chimp is making it seem? Helps us put our emotions in perspective and reduce the intensity of stress. Restructure negative thinking. Cognitive restructuring is a technique in which we change our perception of a stressful situation. If the chimp is amplifying stress by thinking about the worst-case scenario, we can challenge those beliefs and think of alternative ways to approach the situation. For example, if we are worried about a job interview, rather than focusing on the possibility of failure, we can focus on what we've done well so far and how we can learn from the experience, without letting the chimp take over. Relaxation and deep breathing. One of the most effective ways to reduce stress is by practicing relaxation and deep breathing. Peters recommends taking a few minutes to perform deep breathing exercises, which allows the nervous system to relax and reduces the activation of the chimp. Deep breathing helps calm intense emotions and restores the balance between the emotional and rational brain. Establish an action plan. Stress and anxiety often arise when we feel we don't have a clear plan or strategy for handling a situation. Peters suggests that when facing something stressful, it is helpful to create a concrete plan to address the problem. This plan can be as simple as breaking a complex task into small, manageable steps, which gives us a sense of control and confidence. Accept what we cannot control. Often, stress and anxiety come from trying to control what is beyond our reach. The key to reducing anxiety is accepting that there are certain things we cannot control and learning to let go. Practicing acceptance and understanding that not everything is under our control allows us to reduce the emotional burden created by constant worry. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is a technique that helps us focus on the present and free ourselves from worries about the past or future. Practicing mindfulness allows us to be more aware of our emotions and respond calmly to stressful situations. By focusing on the here and now, we can reduce anticipatory anxiety and improve our ability to manage stress. The Chimp and the Search for Long-Term Solutions. Peters emphasizes that the key to overcoming stress and anxiety is developing the ability to see the bigger picture. The chimp is trapped in immediate gratification and momentary stress, but the human brain has the capacity to think long-term and find more balanced solutions. By learning to look beyond immediate stress and focus on our broader goals, we can reduce the feeling of being overwhelmed and improve our ability to make rational decisions. Conclusion of the chapter. This chapter teaches us that stress and anxiety are a direct result of the emotional reactions of the chimp to what it perceives as threats or uncertainties. However, by recognizing these reactions and applying techniques to calm the chimp, we can reduce the impact of these emotions and make more rational decisions. Peters offers a series of strategies that not only help reduce stress but also strengthen our resilience in the face of difficulties. The key is to take control of our emotions and not let the chimp dominate us. Chapter 10. The relationship between the chimp and the fear of failure. In this chapter, Steve Peters focuses on how the internal chimp is strongly linked to the fear of failure and how this fear can influence our decisions and actions destructively. The author explores the roots of this fear and offers strategies for managing it effectively, allowing us to overcome emotional blocks that prevent us from moving forward in our lives and reaching our goals. The fear of failure and the nature of the chimp. Peters explains that the fear of failure is a completely natural emotion, especially for the chimp, whose main mission is to protect us and avoid pain. The chimp does not distinguish between actual failure and the perceived fear of failure. It simply interprets it as a threat to our emotional security. When we face the possibility of failing, the chimp goes into protective mode, preventing us from taking risks or exposing ourselves to situations that might lead to rejection or humiliation. This fear of failure is not only emotional but also physical. The chimp's reactions to fear can include muscle tension, nervousness, and a general feeling of insecurity, which can lead to emotional paralysis. The chimp tends to avoid any situation that could jeopardize our emotional status. As a result, it may lead us to procrastinate, avoid challenges, or even abandon important goals out of fear of not being good enough. The fear of failure as emotional self-sabotage. Peters delves into how the fear of failure, influenced by the chimp, can become a form of emotional self-preservation. Although this fear is a natural response to protect us, it often turns into an emotional saboteur. When we allow the chimp to control our decisions, the fear of failure can prevent us from taking actions that lead to new achievements or personal growth. The chimp may make us believe that failure is something terrible and irreparable, when in reality, it is a normal part of the learning and growth process. For example, in the workplace, the fear of failure can lead to a lack of initiative or self-destructive self-criticism, resulting in procrastination or poor performance due to the fear that our efforts won't be good enough. The chimp tends to focus on the perception of failure, whereas the human brain has the ability to view failure as a learning opportunity. Reprogramming the fear of failure. The author offers several strategies for reprogramming the fear of failure and allowing our rational mind, the human brain, to take control of the situation. The following techniques help us confront and overcome the fear generated by the chimp. Accept that failure is part of the process. The first strategy is to accept that failure is a normal and natural part of life. The human brain, unlike the chimp, understands that making mistakes is part of learning. Rather than seeing failure as something irreversible, we should begin to view it as an opportunity for growth. Every failure provides valuable lessons that allow us to improve and get closer to our goals. Peters encourages us to remember that failure does not define our worth. It is simply a part of the learning process that we must all go through. Changing our perspective on failure reduces the power of fear and allows us to continue moving forward despite the challenges. Expose the chimp to failure in a controlled way. Another important strategy is to gradually and safely expose the chimp to failure. By allowing ourselves to experience small failures in situations that are not too threatening, we can get used to the idea that failure is not the end of the world. This desensitization approach helps reduce the anxiety generated by the fear of failure and boosts our confidence. For example, instead of avoiding a project out of fear of failure, we can start with small steps and accept that not everything will go perfectly. In doing so, we desensitize the chimp and strengthen our ability to manage fear. Positive visualization. Positive visualization is a powerful technique for confronting the fear of failure. This practice involves imagining success rather than failure and focusing on what we want to achieve rather than what we fear. Peters suggests that, in times of uncertainty, we visualize the best possible outcome from our actions, which helps replace the negative narrative generated by the chimp with a more optimistic vision. Visualizing success not only reduces fear but also motivates us to act rather than being paralyzed by fear. The more realistic and detailed our visualization of success is, the easier it will be to face challenges without letting the fear of failure hold us back. Replace fear with confidence. The fear of failure is often fueled by a lack of confidence in our abilities. Peters emphasizes the importance of working on our self-esteem and strengthening our self-confidence. Reminding ourselves of our past capabilities and achievements helps reduce the chimp's influence and increases our belief in our ability to succeed. A key technique is self-affirmation. Telling ourselves things like, "I am capable of facing challenges," or "I can learn from my mistakes," reinforces our internal confidence and reduces the negative impact of the chimp. Set realistic goals. The fear of failure can arise when we face overly large or unrealistic goals, leading to a sense of overwhelm. Instead of setting goals that seem unattainable, Peters recommends setting small and achievable goals. These goals are not only easier to manage, but they also provide positive feedback as we achieve them, which boosts our confidence and reduces fear. By setting progressive goals, we can address the chimp's fears gradually, ensuring that we always have control over the process and celebrating each step we take toward success. The importance of resilience. Peters stresses the importance of developing resilience to deal with the fear of failure. Resilience is the ability to bounce back quickly from failures or challenges. Those with a resilient mindset do not see failure as something that stops them, but as something that strengthens their character and prepares them for future success. The author recommends working on strengthening our resilience by accepting imperfection, persistence, and commitment to the process, regardless of the setbacks we may face. Conclusion of the chapter. This chapter helps us recognize the impact of the fear of failure, providing tools to manage and overcome it. By learning to face our emotions with strategies such as positive visualization, self-affirmation, and self-compassion, we can reduce the chimp's power and move forward toward success. Over time, the fear of failure loses its emotional grip and becomes an opportunity for growth. Chapter 11. How to prevent the chimp from controlling our personal relationships. In this chapter, Steve Peters explores how the chimp brain affects our interpersonal relationships. The chimp, with its emotional and reactive focus, can interfere with our ability to communicate and connect genuinely with others. If we are not aware of the chimp's influence, our interactions can become conflict-driven, impulsive, or destructive, damaging our personal relationships. This chapter provides tools and strategies to maintain control over the chimp and foster healthier, more balanced relationships. The chimp and interpersonal relationships. Peters highlights that the chimp has a huge influence on our interactions with others, from family members to colleagues. The chimp's emotions are directly tied to our perception of emotional threats. When we feel rejected, insulted, or threatened, the chimp kicks into action, leading to intense emotional reactions that often do not match the severity of the situation. The chimp responds instinctively to perceived threats. The chimp instinctively responds to these perceived threats with emotional defenses like anger, fear, or shame. These responses can lead us to become aggressive, avoid confrontation, or even emotionally withdraw from a relationship. However, these reactions often distort the reality of the situation, causing us to respond in ways that do not reflect what we truly want or need in a relationship. The chimp's influence on conflicts. In discussions or conflicts, the chimp tends to take control and drives us to react impulsively. For example, when we feel attacked by a loved one or colleague, the chimp might make us shout, interrupt, or discredit the other person to protect our ego. These emotional responses not only escalate the conflict but also make it harder to resolve the issue peacefully. The chimp also distorts our perception of what others are doing or saying. When someone gives us constructive criticism, the chimp may interpret it as a personal attack and react with anger or defensiveness. This emotional distortion exacerbates the conflict and can make it more difficult to listen to and understand the other person's perspective. The key to emotional self-regulation. Peters emphasizes that the key to preventing the chimp from controlling our relationships is emotional self-regulation. This involves being aware of our emotions as they arise, identifying when the chimp is in charge, and taking conscious steps to pause before reacting impulsively. This approach does not mean suppressing our emotions but rather recognizing them, understanding where they come from, and then choosing a more rational and calm response. The first step toward emotional self-regulation is awareness of the chimp's signals. These signals include physical tension, such as an increased heart rate or breathing, or the feeling of discomfort when we feel attacked. By being aware of these physical symptoms, we can pause and prevent our emotions from controlling our response. The importance of empathy in relationships. One of the best ways to manage the chimp in relationships is through empathy. Empathy allows us to put ourselves in the other person's shoes and understand their emotions and motivations. When we respond from a place of empathy, we can calm the internal chimp and make decisions that promote harmony rather than conflict. Peters suggests that, instead of immediately reacting to a comment or behavior that bothers us, we should take a moment to consider how the other person feels. Why might they have said or done that? This reflection helps us respond more compassionately and less emotionally. Empathy not only improves the quality of our relationships but also reduces the chimp's influence by changing our perspective on the situation. Conscious communication to calm the chimp. Communication is another area where the chimp has a significant impact. When emotions are out of control, the chimp can lead us to be aggressive, passive, or evasive in how we communicate. These behaviors can create barriers in our relationships and increase emotional distance. Peters recommends practicing conscious communication, which involves expressing our emotions assertively and non-reactively. Assertive communication allows us to express what we feel in a clear and respectful way without letting the chimp drive us to shout or emotionally shut down. By communicating our emotions honestly and without judgment, we can prevent the chimp from dominating the conversation. For example, instead of accusing or criticizing the other person, we can use language like, "I feel," to express how a situation affects us. This approach creates a more open and empathetic space for dialogue, making conflict resolution easier. How to avoid excessive emotional attachment. The chimp can also make us emotionally dependent on relationships. This excessive attachment is based on a fear of loneliness or a desire for external validation. When we allow ourselves to fall into this pattern, the chimp drives us to constantly seek approval or affirmation from others, which can result in imbalanced relationships. Peters encourages us to learn to set healthy boundaries in our relationships and not to emotionally depend on others to feel complete. By doing so, we reduce the chimp's control over our emotions and allow ourselves to have more balanced and healthy relationships. This also helps us maintain our autonomy and strengthen our self-esteem. Managing expectations in relationships. Finally, Peters explains how the chimp can create unrealistic expectations about relationships, leading to frustration and conflict. The chimp tends to idealize people or expect too much from them, which leads to disappointment when those expectations are not met. To avoid this, we must learn to manage our expectations realistically and accept that relationships will not always be perfect. By setting more balanced expectations and understanding that we are all human and make mistakes, we can reduce stress and conflict in our relationships. The key is to accept imperfection and work together to build a relationship based on mutual respect and understanding. Chapter conclusion. In this chapter, we have learned how the internal chimp influences our personal relationships and how we can manage its emotional impulses to live healthier and more balanced interactions. By recognizing the chimp's reactions, practicing self-compassion, empathy, and conscious communication, we can reduce the negative impact of the chimp and foster relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. With continued practice, we can transform our relationships and live with more harmony and emotional balance. Chapter 12. The Impact of the Chimp on Work Decision-Making. In this chapter, Steve Peters explores how the chimp brain influences our professional decisions and how work-related stress and pressure can trigger impulsive emotional reactions that affect the quality of our decisions in the workplace. Through this chapter, Peters offers strategies to maintain emotional control and make rational decisions in the work environment, preventing the chimp from sabotaging our professional opportunities. The chimp and decision-making at work. The workplace is an environment where external pressures and expectations can generate stress, which activates the emotional part of the brain, the chimp. This can manifest as an excessive emotional response to work situations such as conflicts with colleagues, deadline pressure, criticism from superiors, or fear of failure. When the chimp takes control, our decisions tend to be impulsive and often misaligned with our long-term professional goals. The chimp, just like in other areas of life, seeks to avoid pain and protect itself. This translates to avoiding confrontations, shirking responsibilities, or making decisions that, while providing temporary emotional relief, are not the wisest for professional development. For example, fear of rejection or criticism may make us avoid a leadership opportunity or the challenge of making difficult decisions, which negatively impacts our career. Workplace stress and the influence of the chimp. Workplace stress, generated by the pressure to meet deadlines, expectations, and goals, is fertile ground for the internal chimp to activate. When we feel overwhelmed by the amount of work or external expectations, the chimp can lead us to impulsive reactions, such as shouting, avoiding important tasks, or procrastinating. These emotional responses, while natural, can sabotage our productivity and affect our work relationships. Peters suggests that the first step in managing workplace stress is recognizing when the chimp is in control. By identifying moments when our emotions intensify due to stress, we can apply techniques to calm the chimp and make more rational decisions. For example, if we are stressed about an important presentation, the chimp might urge us to avoid it or prepare hastily. The human brain, on the other hand, would encourage us to plan ahead and approach the situation strategically. Making decisions with the human brain instead of the chimp. Peters explains that the key to making rational professional decisions is to pause before reacting impulsively. This can be achieved through the practice of pausing before making decisions under pressure. When we are in a stressful situation, such as an important meeting or a task that causes us anxiety, it is crucial to take a step back and breathe deeply to calm our emotions. Once we have taken this pause, we can allow the human brain to take control and analyze the different options logically. The human brain focuses on the bigger picture, evaluates long-term consequences, and considers decisions based on our goals and professional values. For example, if a project is not going as planned, the chimp may urge us to blame others or let it slide, while the human brain might suggest analyzing the problem, adjusting the approach, and seeking solutions. The importance of emotional resilience at work. Peters also emphasizes emotional resilience as a key skill for managing workplace stress. Resilience is the ability to recover quickly from difficulties or failures. When the chimp takes control, it drags us into seeing failures as definitive endings, which increases stress and anxiety. However, the human brain has the ability to reframe failures as learning opportunities. Developing emotional resilience involves training our minds to see challenges as normal and part of the process. Instead of being overwhelmed by the fear of failure, the goal is to adapt and learn from each experience in order to grow and improve. The chimp and work relationships. The impact of the chimp not only affects the decisions we make but also how we interact with others in the workplace. The chimp's intense emotions, such as anger or frustration, can create conflicts with coworkers or superiors. Additionally, the chimp can create a skewed perception of situations, leading to misunderstandings and unnecessary tensions. Peters highlights that to manage work relationships effectively, it is important not to let the chimp control our interactions. The key is to develop greater empathy and understanding toward others, as well as learn to stay calm in difficult situations. By recognizing that everyone in the workplace has a chimp that can influence their reactions, we can be more compassionate and collaborative and handle conflicts more constructively. Strategies for improving work decision-making. Peters offers a series of practical strategies to help reduce the influence of the chimp on our work decisions. Recognize emotions. The first step is to identify the chimp's emotions in the work environment. If we feel irritated, stressed, or frustrated, the chimp may be taking control. Recognizing these emotions gives us the opportunity to pause and reflect. Take a break. When we are overwhelmed, it is helpful to step away momentarily from the situation. A short break helps calm the chimp and return control to our logical mind. This pause can be as simple as taking a short walk or pausing to take deep breaths. Consult with others. In situations of uncertainty, the chimp can generate doubts and fears that cloud our decision-making. Consulting with a trusted colleague or mentor can provide us with an external perspective that helps us make more balanced decisions. Encourage teamwork. Teamwork helps reduce stress and share the emotional load. By working with others, we can support each other in making more rational decisions and avoid the chimp taking over the situation. Set clear and measurable goals. Having clear goals gives us a sense of direction and control. By setting specific professional goals, we can focus our energy on what is important and not let the emotions of the moment take over. Chapter conclusion. The chapter shows how the chimp profoundly influences our work decisions, generating impulsivity, stress, and conflicts. However, with emotional awareness and the right strategies, we can learn to calm the chimp and make more rational work decisions aligned with our professional goals. By learning to manage stress, improve work relationships, and develop emotional resilience, we can create a more harmonious and productive work environment. Chapter 13. Building a management system for the internal chimp. In this chapter, Steve Peters guides us in creating a structured system that allows us to effectively manage the impulsive behavior of the internal chimp. Throughout the chapter, the author offers practical strategies to help us recognize, control, and channel the chimp's emotional reactions so that we can make more rational decisions and live in a more balanced way. The challenge of managing the internal chimp. The chimp is an integral part of our mind, but it is not always easy to control. The problem arises when the chimp takes control of our emotions and behaviors, leading us to act impulsively or irrationally. However, Peters explains that, although we cannot eliminate the chimp, we can manage its influence so that our responses are more balanced. Peters emphasizes that the internal chimp is driven by intense emotions such as fear, anger, or the desire for immediate gratification, and that these emotions can lead us to make decisions based on impulses rather than logic. The first step in managing the chimp is to recognize when it is taking control of our decisions. The chimp management system. Peters suggests that the best approach to controlling the chimp is to create a management system that allows us to act more rationally. This system should include several key components to help us recognize the chimp's signals, channel its energy positively, and pause before making important decisions. Below are the most effective strategies for setting up this system. Emotional awareness. The first step in managing the chimp is developing greater emotional awareness. This means being aware of our emotions as they arise. If we are angry, scared, or insecure, it is important to recognize that these emotions are being driven by the chimp. Awareness of our emotions allows us to stop before acting and decide whether the emotional response is appropriate. Recommended practice. Spend a few minutes each day reflecting on your emotions. By identifying emotions as they arise, you can start distinguishing when the chimp is influencing your reactions and when you're making decisions from a place of logic. Pausing and recalibrating. One of the most powerful strategies for managing the chimp is taking a pause before reacting to an emotional situation. The chimp tends to act impulsively, but by pausing and allowing the human brain to take action, we can make a more logical evaluation of the situation. Recommended practice. When you feel the chimp taking control, e.g., in response to criticism, an argument, or a challenge, take a few seconds to breathe deeply and recalibrate your emotional response. This simple act of pausing can give your rational brain time to process the information before you make an impulsive decision. Reframing situations. When the chimp acts, it often interprets events in an emotionally exaggerated way. This can make us respond with unnecessary fear, anger, or anxiety. An effective strategy is to reframe the situation to reduce the emotional intensity and see it from a more balanced perspective. Recommended practice. If you are faced with criticism, instead of perceiving it as a personal attack, reframe the situation as a learning opportunity. If a situation causes you anxiety about the future, reframe that anxiety as an opportunity to prepare better. This strategy helps reduce the chimp's emotional control and encourages a more rational response. Channeling the chimp's energy. The chimp has powerful energy, but it is not always channeled in a constructive way. When the chimp is too active, it can lead to excessive responses that do not benefit us. One way to manage this energy is to channel it positively. For example, if the chimp drives you to anger or frustration, instead of suppressing these emotions or releasing them destructively, you can channel them into a productive activity like exercise or writing. Recommended practice. When you feel the chimp is pushing you toward an intense emotional response, try channeling that energy into something that helps release tension, such as a brisk walk, doing something creative, or practicing meditation. This will allow you to deactivate the impulsive response and restore balance. Self-compassion and acceptance. Accepting the chimp as a natural part of our mind is essential for effectively managing its influence. The chimp is not our enemy, but an instinctual part of our being that seeks to protect us. By accepting our emotions and the chimp's reactions without judgment, we can work with them in a healthier and more productive way. Recommended practice. When the chimp becomes active and you begin to feel intense emotions, don't punish yourself for those emotions. Recognize that the chimp is reacting from a place of protection and self-preservation, but do not let it control your actions. Be kind to yourself and allow the human mind to intervene and make more rational decisions. Setting clear boundaries. The chimp needs structure and boundaries so that its emotional responses do not spiral out of control. Establishing clear boundaries in our personal and professional lives helps reduce the uncertainty that often fuels the chimp's stress and anxiety. Recommended practice. Set clear boundaries for yourself in terms of what you are willing to accept in your relationships, work, and personal life. This provides the chimp with a sense of security and reduces the likelihood of it acting impulsively due to a lack of control. The impact of the chimp management system on daily life. Peters concludes that by creating and maintaining a management system for the internal chimp, we can reduce the negative impact of impulsive emotions and improve our ability to make rational decisions. This system helps us maintain emotional balance, manage stress, improve relationships, and achieve long-term goals. Moreover, a well-structured system not only facilitates self-control but also fosters a positive mindset that enables us to face challenges with a proactive and calm attitude. As a result, we can live a fuller life, at peace with ourselves and those around us. Chapter conclusion. This chapter provides the tools necessary to effectively manage and channel the chimp in our daily lives. By following these strategies, we can reduce the chimp's emotional control, make more rational, balanced decisions, and align them with our values and goals. As a result, we will be able to live more harmoniously, achieve our goals, and maintain healthier, more authentic relationships. Chapter 14. The Key to Self-Compassion. Accepting the Chimp. In this chapter, Steve Peters discusses the importance of self-compassion in managing the chimp brain and how we can accept the emotions that arise from it without judging ourselves or repressing our emotional reactions. Self-compassion is key to developing a sense of inner peace and emotional balance, allowing us to manage our emotions and behaviors without falling into destructive self-criticism. Peters explains how accepting our emotions and emotional responses, even the impulsive ones from the chimp, is essential for a full and healthy life. Self-compassion as a tool to accept the chimp. The first step in understanding and practicing self-compassion is recognizing that the chimp is a natural part of our psyche and that we should not fight against it or try to suppress it. The chimp is a part of us that is oriented toward emotions, survival instinct, and protection. It is, in many ways, a vital force that, although sometimes overwhelming, has the purpose of protecting us and keeping us safe. The problem arises when we try to reject or ignore the emotions generated by the chimp, especially emotions of anger, fear, anxiety, or sadness. Resistance to accepting these emotions, or fear of them being harmful to our self-esteem or well-being, can lead to guilt, shame, or even emotional disconnection from ourselves. Peters argues that true self-compassion consists of accepting all the emotions that arise from our chimp and not judging them negatively. The chimp and natural emotions. The chimp generates a range of natural emotions in response to everyday life. Emotions such as fear, sadness, anxiety, anger, or insecurity are common responses of the chimp when it feels threatened, vulnerable, or even dissatisfied. However, Peters highlights that these responses are not bad in themselves. They are part of our biology and human nature. The author points out that the problem is not feeling these emotions but how we manage them. Rejecting or suppressing these emotions can lead to mental health issues and destructive behaviors, while accepting them and recognizing them as valid responses can help us manage them in a healthier way. The importance of accepting the chimp without judgment. The first step in working with self-compassion is recognizing that all emotions are valid. Instead of rejecting anger or anxiety, we must accept them as legitimate human emotions. This process of acceptance involves being kind to ourselves when we experience difficult emotions. It is important not to judge these emotions or identify with them destructively. For example, if we are feeling fear or anxiety about a future event, instead of telling ourselves, "I shouldn't feel this," we can accept the emotion with a more compassionate attitude, saying, "It's understandable that I feel fear, given what's at stake." This acceptance allows the emotion to pass without getting caught in a cycle of guilt or shame. The role of self-compassion in self-acceptance. Peters explains that one of the most powerful effects of self-compassion is that it allows us to accept ourselves as we are, with our emotions and flaws. Self-compassion involves recognizing that, as human beings, we all have imperfections, flaws, and difficult emotions. The key is not to reject ourselves for having these emotional reactions but to see them as natural and part of the human process. The author emphasizes that by practicing self-compassion, we are not only accepting our emotions but also learning to be kinder to ourselves. This kindness is not about justifying or excusing destructive behaviors, but about understanding that we all make mistakes and that difficult emotions do not define us as people. Self-compassion and the relationship with the internal chimp. In this chapter, Peters also explores how self-compassion helps us better manage the relationship with our internal chimp. Instead of fighting it or trying to suppress it, we can learn to work with it in a way that its emotional responses don't dominate us. The internal chimp is impulsive, but by accepting its emotions without judgment, we can learn to channel them and use them constructively. Peters suggests that, for example, if the chimp is reacting with anger or frustration, instead of letting those emotions control our actions, we can stop and ask ourselves, "What do I really need at this moment? Is this emotion a proportional response to the situation?" This approach allows us to moderate the intensity of the chimp's emotions and make more thoughtful decisions. Self-care and self-compassion. Peters also points out that self-compassion is deeply connected to self-care. If we are kind to ourselves, we are more likely to take care of our mental and emotional health, seek support when we need it, and set healthy boundaries in our relationships. Self-care is a way of expressing self-compassion, as by caring for ourselves, we are acknowledging that we deserve well-being, peace, and respect. Techniques for cultivating self-compassion. Peters offers several practical techniques for cultivating self-compassion. Replace self-criticism with self-care. When we find ourselves criticizing ourselves for feeling a difficult emotion, we can train ourselves to be kinder. Instead of saying, "I should have done better," we can say, "It's okay, I am learning and growing, and it's normal to feel what I am feeling." Practice gratitude and acknowledgement. Making a daily list of things we are grateful for can help us focus our mind on the positive rather than the negative. Appreciate the small victories and acknowledge the accomplishments of the day, no matter how small. Speak to ourselves kindly. Using kind and understanding language when addressing ourselves can be very helpful. Instead of being harsh, we can talk to ourselves the way we would talk to a close friend. Meditate and practice mindfulness. Mindfulness helps us stay present in the moment and accept our emotions as they are, without judging them. Meditation can help us distance ourselves from our emotions, allowing us to experience them without fully identifying with them. Chapter conclusion. This chapter teaches us that self-compassion is essential for our emotional health and well-being. Accepting the chimp and the emotions that arise from it allows us to manage our emotional reactions better and live with more inner peace. By cultivating self-compassion, we not only improve our relationship with ourselves but also improve our interpersonal relationships and our ability to manage life's challenges. Chapter 15. Training the Chimp to Achieve Success. In this chapter, Steve Peters explores how we can use the chimp's energy in a positive and productive way to achieve success in different areas of our lives. Although the chimp is designed to protect us, its emotional responses can be intense, impulsive, and often destructive if not properly managed. However, training the chimp to channel its energy constructively can be a powerful tool for driving our success. The chimp's energy and its positive potential. The chimp, as an emotional part of our mind, holds a tremendous amount of energy that, if left unchecked, can lead to impulsive reactions or destructive behaviors. However, this same energy holds great potential when channeled positively. The chimp has an incredible ability to motivate, move quickly, and respond with passion to challenges. Peters emphasizes that instead of seeing the chimp as an obstacle to success, we should learn to harness this emotional energy to work in our favor. For example, when we face a challenge or an important project, the chimp can provide the emotional drive needed to overcome difficulties. If we learn to direct its energy toward constructive goals, we can use that drive to work harder, stay motivated, and approach obstacles with more confidence. The chimp and motivation. The chimp can be a powerful source of motivation. Although the motivation derived from the chimp's emotions is often related to instant gratification, Peters suggests that we can channel this energy toward achieving long-term goals. The chimp is naturally ambitious, seeking rewards and immediate results, which can be positive if redirected toward the pursuit of more sustainable goals. The author suggests that when the chimp feels a reward or achievement on the path toward a goal, its energy stays high, helping us stay focused and motivating our actions toward success. By creating an action plan that sets achievable goals and provides rewards along the way, we can keep the chimp motivated and engaged in the process. Transforming the chimp's emotional reactivity into productive action. One key to training the chimp is transforming its emotional reactivity into productive action. Instead of letting the chimp get carried away by emotions like anger or fear, we can reprogram these responses to drive us to act positively. For example, if the chimp feels frustrated or fearful of a difficult task, rather than withdrawing or procrastinating, we can channel that energy into the effort needed to overcome the challenge. Peters introduces the idea of using visualization and other motivational techniques to transform the chimp's emotional energy into constructive actions. By reframing challenges and turning them into opportunities, we can use the energy from anxiety or fear to move forward with more determination instead of becoming paralyzed. The chimp and resilience. Training the chimp is also connected to developing resilience. Since the chimp is linked to our emotions, it can be very sensitive to failure or disappointment. However, when we understand how the chimp works and learn to manage its responses, we can turn those negative emotions into reasons for growth. The author emphasizes that resilience doesn't mean avoiding failure, but rather learning from it and overcoming it. The chimp, when trained properly, can recognize that failure is not the end, but an opportunity to improve. This shift in perspective can help us overcome obstacles more effectively and keep our motivation high in the face of difficulties. Reprogramming the chimp's limiting beliefs. Another key aspect of training the chimp for success is reprogramming its limiting beliefs. The chimp is full of fears and insecurities that can limit us, especially when facing new opportunities. Peters explains that if we let the chimp control our beliefs, we may have a negative view of ourselves or our chances of success. To counter this, we must identify the limiting beliefs the chimp creates and challenge them. By replacing beliefs of failure or insecurity with positive and realistic thoughts, we can begin to shift the chimp's mindset to focus on personal growth and improvement. The chimp and self-care. An essential part of training the chimp is learning to care for and respect ourselves. The chimp can be prone to self-criticism and demanding too much of us in the name of success, which can lead to burnout or dissatisfaction. Peters stresses the importance of balancing the effort toward success with the need for rest, relaxation, and self-acceptance. The author suggests that the chimp can also be trained to recognize when it's necessary to take a break or acknowledge the accomplishments made. By practicing self-care and self-compassion, we can keep the chimp motivated without falling into self-destructive behavior that arises from emotional or mental exhaustion. The power of gratitude and focus on the process. Peters introduces the concept that gratitude can be a powerful tool for training the chimp. When we start recognizing and appreciating our achievements, no matter how small, the chimp feels valued and supported. This practice of gratitude helps us maintain a positive attitude and focus on the process rather than the final result. By doing this, the chimp becomes more motivated and committed, as gratitude acts as positive reinforcement. Chapter conclusion. This chapter teaches us how to channel the chimp's energy toward personal and professional success. By understanding how the chimp works and training it to turn its emotional responses into productive actions, we can overcome obstacles, improve our motivation, and achieve our goals more effectively. By training the chimp to work in harmony with our rational side, we can harness its energy to achieve sustainable and meaningful success. Peters concludes by emphasizing that, although the chimp will never completely disappear, we can train it to be a positive force in our lives, helping us to be more resilient, focused, and determined in the pursuit of our goals. Chapter 16. The relationship between discipline and the chimp. In this chapter, Steve Peters delves into how discipline plays a crucial role in managing the chimp brain and how it can be a powerful tool for calming its emotional impulses and maintaining emotional balance. Through this concept, the author explains how self-discipline helps us make more rational decisions and act with greater emotional control, even when the chimp wants to take charge. The role of discipline in daily life. Peters begins by highlighting that discipline is not just about the ability to maintain control in high-pressure moments, but also about our ability to regulate our actions over time. Discipline is the process of making conscious decisions that allow us to act in line with our values and goals, without giving in to the momentary impulses generated by the chimp. The chimp, by nature, is very focused on instant gratification and avoiding negative emotions. This drive can lead us to procrastinate on important tasks, avoid responsibilities, or simply act based on our emotions in the moment. However, discipline helps us stay on course toward our long-term goals, even when the chimp urges us to act impulsively. Discipline as a tool to calm the chimp. One of the key points in this chapter is how discipline can be used as a tool to control the inner chimp. The chimp tends to be highly reactive and emotionally responds to events. This impulsive behavior can lead to stress, anxiety, or disproportionate reactions to everyday situations. However, when we develop self-discipline, we create a space between our emotions and our actions, allowing us to make more rational and calm decisions. Peters emphasizes that discipline is not about suppressing our emotions, but about training our mind so that, when an intense emotion arises, the chimp doesn't control our decisions impulsively. By practicing discipline, we can reduce the impact of the chimp's emotions and choose more thoughtful responses. How to establish disciplined habits. Peters offers some suggestions for developing disciplined habits that help us control the chimp and improve our decision-making. Set clear and realistic goals. Discipline starts with clarity of purpose. If we have a clear goal in mind, such as improving our health, finances, or professional skills, we can consistently work toward that objective. Without a defined goal, the chimp tends to divert our attention to immediate rewards or less important activities. Create a daily routine. A routine is an effective way to implement discipline in our lives. By establishing a structured schedule that includes time for work, rest, and exercise, we reduce the opportunities for the chimp to divert us from our tasks. Routines provide structure and help us stay focused, avoiding procrastination or impulsive decisions. Practice self-care. Discipline also includes taking care of oneself. This means ensuring we are physically healthy, emotionally balanced, and mentally alert. Peters emphasizes the importance of prioritizing personal well-being through habits such as exercise, eating well, and taking time to relax. When we care for ourselves, our human brain becomes more capable of handling the chimp's impulses with calm and control. Use controlled rewards. Discipline does not mean avoiding all forms of gratification but learning to reward ourselves in a controlled manner. When we achieve a goal or complete an important task, it is helpful to give ourselves a reward that is not excessive but motivates us to keep going. This also helps train the chimp not to seek instant gratification but to understand that rewards come as a result of disciplined effort. Discipline in times of stress or crisis. The chimp tends to have more control in moments of stress or crisis, when our emotions are amplified and our thoughts become clouded. During these moments, discipline becomes an essential tool to stay calm and not let the chimp drive us to disproportionate reactions. Peters suggests that, when under pressure, we should take a step back, breathe deeply, and apply the discipline principles we've previously established, such as making decisions based on values rather than acting on emotions. The author explains that in stressful situations, discipline allows us to recalibrate our responses, focusing on practical solutions and rational actions rather than succumbing to fear or irrationality. By practicing discipline in these moments, we can face adversity with emotional strength and make decisions that lead to more effective solutions. Discipline in interpersonal relationships. Another crucial aspect where discipline plays an important role is in our interpersonal relationships. The chimp can generate intense emotional reactions when we feel disrespected or attacked by others. This can lead to conflicts or misunderstandings. However, if we have emotional discipline, we can stay calm and act thoughtfully, rather than reacting impulsively or aggressively. Peters emphasizes that by practicing emotional discipline, we can respond with empathy and understanding rather than defensiveness or aggression, which strengthens our relationships and creates a healthier and more cooperative environment. The process of chimpanzee training through discipline. Peters concludes this chapter by highlighting that discipline is a powerful tool for training the chimpanzee. Although the chimp will always be present as part of our mind, we can control its impulses and channel its emotional energy in a more positive direction. Through discipline, we learn to master our impulses, act with greater balance, and make more rational decisions, which significantly improves our quality of life. In the end, discipline not only helps us manage our emotions but is also key to achieving our goals and living in alignment with our deepest values and aspirations. Chapter conclusion. This chapter emphasizes the importance of discipline as a tool to manage the inner chimpanzee. Through discipline, we can reduce the influence of impulsive emotions and maintain control over our decisions, both in personal and professional spheres. Discipline not only allows us to make more rational decisions but also strengthens our relationships, helps us overcome stress, and achieve our long-term goals. If we continue developing this skill, we can live a more balanced and fulfilling life. Chapter 17. The importance of empathy and understanding in managing the chimpanzee. In this chapter, Steve Peters addresses the crucial role that emotional skills, such as empathy, play in managing the chimp brain and how these skills can improve both our emotional life and our interpersonal relationships. The chimpanzee, with its emotional nature, often creates conflicts, misunderstandings, and impulsive reactions. Peters explains how empathy and understanding can be powerful tools to control the chimp, reduce emotional reactivity, and enhance our ability to relate to others in a healthier and more balanced way. The role of empathy in managing the chimpanzee. Empathy is the ability to put ourselves in another's shoes and understand their thoughts, feelings, and perspectives. Peters emphasizes that empathy is one of the most effective tools for reducing conflicts and managing the emotional reactions of the chimp, both within ourselves and in our relationships with others. The chimp tends to view situations very individually, primarily protecting our own interests and ego. This mindset can often prevent us from seeing beyond our own emotions and the way social interactions affect us. By practicing empathy, we not only understand the emotions of others but also reduce the impulsive responses of our own chimp. When we are empathetic, we can better attune to others' emotions, allowing us to handle situations with greater calm and rationality. Additionally, empathy helps us recognize that everyone has an inner chimp, which can improve our patience and tolerance toward others' emotional reactions. How empathy helps us dominate the chimpanzee. Peters explains that when the chimp is in control, our emotions tend to cloud our perception, and our reactions become impulsive. The chimp often sees situations through an emotional lens, interpreting social interactions as personal threats, criticisms, or attacks. This can lead to defensive reactions such as anger, irritation, or even aggression, especially when we feel vulnerable or challenged. Empathy, on the other hand, helps us lower the emotional reactivity of the chimp. By attempting to understand others' perspectives, we depersonalize situations. Instead of feeling attacked, we can view interactions more objectively and make more rational decisions. For example, if a colleague criticizes us, rather than reacting with anger or defensiveness, which the chimp would do, empathy allows us to see the criticism from a constructive perspective, recognizing that the other person likely has no ill intentions. The chimpanzee and interpersonal relationships. The chimp also plays a significant role in how we manage our interpersonal relationships. The intense emotions of the chimp can affect our communication, creating misunderstandings or unnecessary conflicts. In relationships, both personal and professional, the chimp can trigger impulsive responses, such as interrupting, shouting, or reacting defensively, making conflict resolution difficult. Empathy allows us to recognize others' emotions and respond in a way that fosters cooperation and mutual understanding. If someone is upset or frustrated, empathy allows us to listen to their concerns without feeling attacked, helping us stay calm and handle the situation with tact. Additionally, by practicing empathy, we can improve our active listening skills, strengthening our relationships and creating an environment of mutual respect and appreciation. Empathy in conflict management. Empathy also plays a key role in conflict management. When a disagreement arises, the chimp tends to make emotions run high, which can escalate the conflict and make resolution difficult. However, empathy allows us to view the conflict from the other person's perspective, which helps de-escalate the situation and find more effective solutions. By understanding the other person's motivations and concerns, we can approach the conflict more constructively and avoid letting the chimp drive us to react destructively. Peters offers some examples of how we can apply empathy in conflict situations. If we are arguing with a colleague about a project and start to feel attacked, empathy helps us listen to what the other person is truly trying to communicate rather than responding impulsively. By doing this, we can reformulate our response to focus on a solution rather than getting caught in an emotional battle. Understanding the emotions of the chimpanzee. A key aspect of empathy is understanding the chimpanzee's own emotions. If we are unable to understand our own emotional reactions, it becomes harder to comprehend the reactions of others. Peters explains that the first step in practicing empathy with others is accepting and understanding our own emotions. This involves recognizing when the chimp is taking control of our reactions and being willing to manage it consciously. Understanding our emotions allows us to be more flexible and empathetic with others. For example, if we are feeling frustration or anxiety, we can recognize that these emotions are driven by our chimp and take steps to reduce their impact. This not only improves our ability to manage our internal emotions, but also enables us to respond with more patience and understanding when others' emotions come into play. Developing empathy. Peters also offers some practical strategies for developing empathy. These include active listening. Empathy begins with genuinely listening. Instead of preparing to respond, we should give our full attention to what the other person is saying without interrupting or making assumptions. Asking open-ended questions. By asking questions that encourage the other person to explain their thoughts and feelings, we can better understand their perspective. Open-ended questions foster deeper communication and enrich relationships. Putting ourselves in the other's shoes. By trying to imagine how the other person feels in a given situation, we can emotionally connect with their experiences and respond with more understanding. Validating others' emotions. Empathy also involves validating others' emotions, recognizing their feelings without judging or trying to minimize them. This creates an environment of mutual respect and acceptance. The chimpanzee and personal development. Empathy not only improves our relationships with others, but also has a direct impact on our personal development. Peters argues that emotional skills like empathy not only allow us to manage our emotions better, but also strengthen us internally, helping us become more resilient and flexible in the face of life's challenges. By learning to understand and manage our own emotions, we can live a more balanced and fulfilling life. Chapter conclusion. This chapter underscores that empathy is one of the most powerful skills we can cultivate to manage the inner chimp and improve our relationships. By practicing empathy, we not only reduce the impact of the chimp's impulsive emotional reactions, but also create deeper, more respectful, and harmonious relationships. Through empathy, we can make wiser, calmer, and more conscious decisions, improving our emotional health and strengthening our ability to live in a more balanced way. Chapter 18. The Chimpanzee and Resistance to Change. In this chapter, Steve Peters explores how the chimp brain resists change and how this resistance can hinder our personal and professional growth. The chimp, as a primitive part of our mind, is designed to seek stability and predict the future with certainty. When faced with new or uncertain situations, the chimp responds with fear and distrust, making it difficult for us to adapt to new circumstances. The fear of change and the protective function of the chimpanzee. The inner chimp is deeply tied to the survival instinct, so any change it perceives as a threat is seen as a potential risk. Although change can be an opportunity for growth and improvement, the chimp interprets it as danger because it challenges stability and security. The author highlights how the chimp always seeks certainty and control, and change introduces an element of uncertainty that is inherently unpleasant for this part of our mind. When we face new challenges or the need to change a habit, the chimp may react with resistance. Instead of seeing change as an opportunity for growth, it sees it as a danger to avoid. This can manifest as procrastination, denial of the need for change, or even self-sabotage. How resistance to change affects our lives. Resistance to change, fueled by the chimp, shows up in many forms. In personal life, it can be the difficulty of breaking unhealthy habits or the refusal to step out of our comfort zone. In the professional sphere, resistance to change may manifest as fear of failure, doubt about our abilities, or anxiety about the unknown. Peters explains that this fear and resistance to change not only affect our decisions in the moment but also hinder our long-term progress. The comfort of stability and certainty can be very appealing, but staying in a constant state of inertia prevents us from evolving or reaching our full potential. The key to moving forward is learning to overcome this resistance and approach change with a more open mindset. The human brain versus the chimpanzee in change. While the chimp resists change, the human brain has the ability to adapt and adjust to new situations. The human brain is oriented to solve problems and seek solutions, enabling it to navigate uncertainty. The human brain is motivated by the possibility of improvement and achieving long-term goals, making it more willing to embrace change. Peters highlights that the challenge is to learn how to integrate both parts of our mind so that we can use our rationality and strategic thinking, human brain, to overcome the emotional and reactive responses of the chimp. The chimp needs to feel that it is being protected and in control during change, while the human brain needs an approach that sees change as an opportunity to learn and grow. Strategies to overcome resistance to change. Peters offers a series of strategies to overcome resistance to change, based on understanding how the chimp works and how we can use our rational abilities to manage uncertainty. Recognize the chimp's resistance. The first step is to recognize that the chimp is resisting change. It's important to be aware that our fears and concerns are not always rational and often stem from an instinctive reaction. By being aware of this resistance, we can approach the situation from a position of control, rather than being dominated by fear. Face change with small steps. Instead of making drastic changes that might feel overwhelming, Peters suggests that it is better to make small, gradual changes. By taking small and manageable steps, we can reduce uncertainty and give the chimp time to adapt. This helps mitigate fear and makes the adaptation process easier. Gradual desensitization. Similar to exposure in psychology, gradual desensitization involves slowly exposing ourselves to what scares or causes uncertainty. For example, if we fear public speaking, we can start by engaging in smaller conversations and gradually increase the difficulty. This approach helps reduce anxiety and allows the chimp to get used to the idea of change. Reframe change as an opportunity. Rather than seeing change as a threat, we can reframe it as an opportunity to learn and improve. Peters advises us to change our perspective on change, viewing it not as something negative but as a positive experience that will help us grow and develop as individuals. Social and emotional support. The chimp often needs emotional support and to feel that it is not alone during the change process. The author recommends seeking support from others during times of transition. This can include talking to friends, mentors, or colleagues who have gone through similar experiences. Social support can reduce feelings of isolation and provide the necessary comfort to face change. Celebrate small achievements. It is essential to celebrate every small progress during the change process. Each step we take toward change should be recognized and celebrated, as this strengthens confidence and reinforces the feeling that change is manageable. This positive feedback helps calm the chimp and gives it the assurance that change is not as scary as it seems. The importance of mental flexibility. Peters also emphasizes that mental flexibility is a key skill for managing change. Those who have the ability to quickly adapt to new circumstances and learn from experience are more successful in both personal and professional life. Mental flexibility not only involves accepting change but also using it as a way to grow and evolve. Chapter conclusion. This chapter highlights how the chimp plays an important role in resistance to change but also offers practical solutions to overcome this obstacle. By recognizing our emotions, taking small steps, and changing our perspective on change, we can reduce the negative influence of the chimp and move toward our goals with confidence and determination. The key is to manage our emotional reactions and make rational decisions, focusing on how change can help improve our lives in the future. With these tools, we can overcome resistance to change and reach our true potential. Chapter 19. The balance between the chimp and the logical brain. In this chapter, Steve Peters addresses one of the most important topics for living a balanced life and making rational decisions: how to maintain the balance between the emotional brain, chimp, and the logical brain, human. Throughout the chapter, the author offers strategies to learn how to manage the conflict between the chimp's emotional impulsivity and the ability to make rational decisions based on the logic of the human brain. The conflict between the chimp and the logical brain. The human brain and the chimp are two mental systems that operate very differently. While the human brain focuses on rational thinking, logical decision-making, and long-term analysis, the chimp is designed to make quick decisions based on emotions and impulses. The chimp acts for protection, instant gratification, and survival, while the human brain is more focused on planning and conscious reflection. The conflict between these two systems can lead to imbalanced decisions and inconsistent behaviors. For example, when the chimp feels fear, it may lead us to avoid a situation, even though we know rationally that facing it would be the best choice in the long run. The chimp may tell us to run away from a challenge, while the logical brain tries to tell us to move forward. Peters suggests that the key is not to eliminate the chimp or its emotional impulses, but to achieve a balance between both systems, recognizing when the chimp is taking control and how the human brain can calm those emotional reactions to make more balanced choices. The role of the chimp in intense emotions. The chimp is responsible for most of the intense emotions we experience, such as anger, fear, anxiety, or stress. While these emotions are natural and can be useful in emergency situations, in daily life they can interfere with our ability to make rational decisions. The chimp is designed to react quickly, which makes it perfect for situations where an immediate response is needed, like fleeing from danger. However, in more everyday and less urgent situations, the human brain should be the one in control of emotions, assessing long-term consequences and analyzing options with a clear mind. The importance of the conscious pause. Peters emphasizes that, in order to achieve balance between the chimp and the human brain, one of the most effective steps is to take a conscious pause before making important decisions. By giving ourselves a moment to breathe, reflect, and assess the situation from a logical perspective, we can prevent the chimp's intense emotions from clouding our judgment. The author suggests that this pause process is crucial for recognizing when we are being guided by the chimp and when we are using our logical brain to make decisions. This pause also gives us the necessary space to calm the chimp and allow our rational mind to intervene, helping us make decisions that align more closely with our values and goals. Emotional balance and decision-making. The chapter also delves into how emotional balance plays a key role in decision-making. The logical brain cannot function effectively if we are overwhelmed by emotions. This is why Peters recommends practicing emotional management techniques, such as mindfulness, to help us stay centered in the present moment and manage our emotions. The author also suggests that emotional balance not only involves recognizing when the chimp's emotions are taking control, but also learning how to channel those emotions positively. The chimp is not inherently bad. Its emotions can be productive if managed properly. For example, the energy of the chimp can be channeled into positive actions such as exercising, working toward our goals, or responding with empathy. The power of discipline and self-control. Another important theme Peters addresses is the power of discipline and self-control in maintaining the balance between the chimp and the human brain. Discipline allows us to make conscious decisions, even when the chimp wants us to act impulsively. The author suggests that we can strengthen our discipline through daily routines that help us maintain control over our emotions and make logical decisions, rather than letting the chimp dominate. According to Peters, the key to self-control is identifying the moments when the chimp is taking control and applying techniques that help us regain balance. This may include pausing, taking deep breaths, or speaking with a trusted person to gain a clearer perspective on the situation. The importance of balanced decisions. Peters concludes this chapter by highlighting that the true goal is to make balanced decisions that integrate both logical thinking and the chimp's emotions. While emotions should not be suppressed, it is important not to let them control us completely. The key is to use the cognitive abilities of the human brain to make conscious choices that align with our long-term goals, while managing the chimp's emotions constructively. An example of a balanced decision might be facing a challenge instead of avoiding it out of fear of failure. The chimp might urge us to dodge the challenge, but the human brain will remind us that overcoming that challenge is key to personal and professional growth. The balance between the chimp and the human brain allows us to make decisions that strengthen our resilience and bring us closer to our goals. Chapter conclusion. This chapter underscores the importance of balancing emotions with reason to make wiser, more rational decisions. The chimp and the human brain are not enemies. On the contrary, both have important roles to play in our lives. Learning to recognize when each one is in charge and how to manage them effectively allows us to make more balanced decisions and live a more fulfilling life. By integrating emotional control with the logic of the human brain, we can manage our emotions effectively and make decisions that align with what we truly want in the long term. This balance is key to living with purpose and achieving personal and professional success. Chapter 20. Conclusion. Living in harmony with our chimp. In this final chapter, Steve Peters offers a summary of the key lessons from the book and shows us how to integrate what we've learned to live a more balanced and fulfilling life. The conclusion of the book is a call to action to accept and manage our internal chimp in a way that allows us to achieve a greater level of self-awareness, emotional control, and personal success. Living with the chimp, not against it. Peters begins this chapter by emphasizing that the chimp should not be seen as an enemy but as a natural part of our mind. Throughout the book, we have learned that the chimp represents our most primitive and instinctive emotions, but it also plays an important role in our survival. The key is not to eliminate the chimp but to learn to live with it in harmony, recognizing its influence and managing its impact on our daily life. The challenge is not to deny or repress the chimp, but to integrate it in a healthy way. By recognizing when the chimp is in charge, we can calm it, reflect, and make more rational decisions aligned with our values and long-term goals. The power of self-understanding. One of the key lessons throughout the book is that self-understanding is crucial for managing the chimp. Knowing ourselves, understanding how our mind works, and recognizing our emotions gives us the power to take control. As we develop greater emotional awareness, we can better manage the chimp's impulsive reactions and respond in a more balanced and productive way. Peters encourages us to accept our emotions without judgment. The chimp, with its intense emotions, is not something we should be ashamed of, but a part of us that can be trained and managed. Self-care, self-acceptance, and self-compassion are powerful tools for dealing with the chimp's emotions and living a more harmonious life. The balance between the human brain and the chimp. The author reiterates that the goal is not to suppress the chimp but to find the balance between the two parts of our mind, the human brain, rational, logical, and the chimp's brain, emotional, impulsive. This balance is crucial for making conscious decisions, managing stress, and handling personal relationships more effectively. Peters reminds us that the human brain has the ability to think long-term and make informed decisions, but the chimp doesn't always agree with this approach. Therefore, we must learn to listen to and respect the human brain while managing the chimp's emotions. The balance between these two parts is the key to a fuller and more satisfying life. Applying what we've learned for a balanced life. In this final section, Peters invites us to apply the lessons from the book to our daily lives in order to achieve greater internal harmony. This involves recognizing our emotional triggers, practicing self-control in stressful situations, and learning to make rational decisions rather than letting the chimp's emotions lead us down impulsive paths. The author emphasizes the importance of being proactive in managing the chimp. The human brain is not only capable of thinking logically and making informed decisions, but it can also be trained to manage stress, emotions, and social interactions more effectively. The key is to be aware of our emotions, reflect on our responses, and apply tools to manage our reactions more balanced. Personal transformation. One of the main takeaways from the book is that managing the chimp is a continuous process of personal transformation. As we practice self-knowledge and self-control, we become more resilient, self-aware, and capable of making decisions that align with our true essence. Peters also encourages us to see this process as an opportunity to grow and learn. Rather than seeing the chimp as a limiting force, we should view it as a powerful tool that, when managed properly, can help us make wise decisions, strengthen our relationships, and live a fuller life. Living a life without the chimp's control. The ultimate goal of this journey is to live a life free from the chimp's impulsive reactions. By achieving balance between reason and emotion, we can make healthier decisions, have more genuine relationships, and find inner peace. The author concludes that true freedom doesn't come from eliminating emotions but from learning to live with them in harmony. Final conclusion. The key to living in harmony with our chimp is understanding its functioning and managing its emotions effectively. Through self-understanding, reflection, and constant practice, we can take control of our emotions, improve our decision-making, and strengthen our relationships. This chapter ends with an invitation to keep learning, growing, and training our minds to live a more balanced, serene, and fulfilling life. We have reached the end of this fascinating journey through the chimp paradox. This book has taught us how our mind can be both our greatest ally and our greatest challenge. Learning to manage our inner chimp is a powerful tool for making more conscious decisions, handling our emotions, and achieving our goals with greater clarity. Remember always, true change starts within. From now on, you have the tools to take control and live a fuller, more balanced life. If this content has been helpful to you, subscribe to the Audio Mentors YouTube channel, where you will find summaries of transformative books that will help you grow and reach your full potential. See you in the next book.